I call Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I'd like to pick up where Mr Goff left off. Mr Speaker, what this legislation does is it actually takes a lump sum payment that was given to a veteran either upon his or her retirement or injury or incapacitation and says it is income. Before this Act, Mr Speaker, this was not counted as income, but now it is. So what that means, and Mr Goff, this is retrospective legislation, this is retrospective, so what this means, Mr Speaker, is there may well be veterans out there now who have banked money, who have paid off mortgages, who have given money to grandkids, or worse still, Mr Speaker, heaven forbid, who may have died. And the government is going to go to them and say, sorry, we got it wrong, we're going to take money out of your bank account. And that is wrong. Mr Speaker, there are some very high barriers for implementing retrospective legislation. First and foremost, it's about fairness. And the irony that this is being implemented in the 100th anniversary of Gallipoli has not escaped a number of members on this side. But to make it worse, Mr Speaker, the one member on that side of the House who knows something about the armed services, Colonel Andrew Bailey, stood up in this House and said, it's minor, it's not important, it doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Well, I would love to be a fly on a flagpole when Colonel Bailey has to face his men and explain why this does not matter. Mr Speaker, there will no doubt be a number of veterans who are going to retire or who are due to retire, and they have banked the money they're going to get as a lump sum, because the legislation says you do not pay tax on this. And I don't think that's a bad idea. If you've served your country overseas, if you've been a member of the armed services, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you love your country and you're prepared to die for your country. In fact, it's probably the one job where you can put your hand on your heart and say, I am prepared to lay down my life for my country. And we are now going to tax these guys on their superannuation lump sum payments. And I think that is an absolute travesty. And as Mr Goff said, the Minister wouldn't even stand up and let us know how many veterans this affected. So we can't go to our RSAs because Mr Speaker, Mr Goff consulted with the RSA. They didn't even know about this. I remember at the Select Committee asking the Defence Force person, representative, are you going to consult? Has there been a level of consultation? And she said, yes, no, we're going to make sure that the people understand this. Well, how come, Mr Speaker, Mr Goff can phone the RSA and they know nothing about this? That's right. So where was the consultation? And the thing that gets to me a little bit is this is called the Taxation, Kiwisaver, Homestart and Tandem Remedial Matters Bill. I think, Mr Speaker, this government has been a little bit disingenuous. I think they've snuck this in under the radar, hoping it wouldn't get noticed, and then go, phew, it's gone away. Well, it won't, Mr Speaker, it won't, because you cannot screw our veterans in this way. And the fact that over 3 or 4 days we've been asking the same question, how many veterans are going to be affected? What sort of level of communication have you had with veterans organisations? Does the RSA know about this? Not once has a minister stood up and answered any of our questions, and I think that's a little bit of dereliction of duty, and it just makes my blood boil. The other thing, of course, is the stuff about the housing market, and I've heard national member after national member stand up and say it's about the market. Let the market decide. In fact, we had one member who uses Maggie Thatcher as his idol stand up and say, let the market decide. Well, Mr Speaker, I think every single Auckland MP knows that the market has failed. The market has failed in Auckland because the rate of home ownership has plummeted, house prices have gone through the roof, and the dream of home ownership for a generation of young Kiwis is fast disappearing because they simply cannot afford it. And if Dr Nick Smith believes that somehow you can cobble $50,000 together and buy a $500,000 home and that's affordable, then he needs to get in touch with reality, because you need to have a household income of $175,000. Just to sum up, Mr Speaker, we will support this bill because Treasury said it does no harm to anyone, but it does. It harms veterans and we have no idea of the magnitude. Thank you very much.
I call Alistair Scott.
Mr Speaker.